You ever have those villains that you just resonate with, even though they're the bad guys? Not because you're evil, but because, like them, there's something inside you that got broken. Something that maybe made you do things you're not proud of. Maybe it was the anger, or fear, or trying so hard to protect yourself that you ended up pushing people away. The more I look back at the stories I loved growing up, the more I see myself, not just in the heroes, but in the ones who were hurting. The ones who thought they had to fight to survive. The ones who tried to control everything because they were terrified of being vulnerable. So today, let's talk about villains. Not to justify what they've done, but to understand the shadows they carry. Because sometimes, what makes a character a villain isn't that they're evil, it's that they were never taught how to heal. This is the Omniversal Seeker, and this is what our favorite villains can teach us about shadow work. Before we get into the characters, let's go over what shadow work even means. Shadow work is a term from Jungian psychology. Carl Jung believed that every one of us has a shadow, the parts of ourselves we repress, deny, or don't want to look at. That could be anger, jealousy, shame, insecurity, pride, trauma. Anything we were told was too much or not enough growing up. Instead of processing these emotions, we bury them. But buried doesn't mean gone. These parts of us still show up in our relationships, in our triggers, in how we sabotage ourselves, in how we treat others when we're afraid. Shadow work is the process of turning inward and saying, what have I been running from? What parts of me did I learn to hate? And how can I bring compassion to the parts of myself that never got it? It doesn't mean excusing bad behavior. It means understanding it so we can change it. In storytelling, villains often represent the shadow. They act out the parts of us we don't want to claim. And by watching them, we get a mirror, sometimes an uncomfortable one. But that's where the healing starts. So with that in mind, let's look at our first character, Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Azula was powerful, controlled, fearless, the kind of girl who always had a plan and was always in control. But her power came from fear, not respect, not love. People obeyed her because they didn't want to get burned. Her friends didn't leave because she stopped being perfect. They left when they finally stopped being afraid of her. And by that point, fear was all Azula had ever known how to wield. In the series finale, as she's about to be crowned Fire Lord, her mind unravels. She banishes everyone from the palace, not out of strategy, but because she's paranoid and isolated. She hallucinates her mother in the mirror, haunted by a voice she never understood. Love. Azula's story isn't a fall from grace. It's the crash of someone who's never learned to feel safe without control. Her shadow is fear of vulnerability, masked as dominance. She didn't know how to be loved, only how to be feared. Shadow work here means asking yourself, when did I learn that control was the only way to be safe? Do I mistake being feared for being respected? Where am I still living from fear, even if I call it strength? Then there's Klaus Mikaelson from The Vampire Diaries and the originals. The original hybrid, the bastard son. The one even his own father wanted dead. And not in a metaphorical way. Klaus's father, Michael, hated him so deeply he hunted Klaus for centuries across continents with one mission: destroy the abomination that wasn't even his real son. That is rejection at a cellular level. It's not just abandonment, it's extermination. And to make matters worse, Michael murdered Klaus's real father before he could ever build a relationship with him. So, Klaus grew up believing that love is conditional. Family is conditional. He demands loyalty but tests it with cruelty. He destroys the people he loves before they have a chance to hurt him. You see this most with Elijah, his brother, someone who loved him relentlessly, and Caroline, the girl who saw through him but couldn't save him. Klaus's shadow is self-sabotage born from profound unworthiness. Shadow work here means asking yourself, do I push people away to protect myself from being abandoned? Do I believe I have to earn love or destroy it before it destroys me? What parts of me are still trying to prove I'm worthy of belonging? Then there's Silco from Arcane, a visionary, a survivor, a revolutionary who believed Zon could be free, even if it meant becoming the villain in everyone else's story. Silco wasn't always ruthless. He once fought side by side with Vander, dreaming of a better life for the people in the lanes. But when Vander betrayed him, choosing peace over revolution, something broke in Silco. Not just trust, but faith. From that moment on, he saw compassion as weakness, trust as vulnerability, and he promised himself he'd never be betrayed again. So he did what he thought he had to do. He flooded the Undercity with shimmer, built a criminal empire, turned children into soldiers, all in the name of Zon's freedom, the freedom he never got to have. But what makes Silco complex and tragic is his relationship with Jinx. He sees himself in her, abandoned, unstable, turned into something monstrous by the world. In his own twisted way, he loves her, protects her, uses her, needs her. In the end, Silco is given a choice: Jinx or his dream. And for the first time, he chooses love. But by then, it's too late. Silco's shadow is belief in control at the cost of connection. He confuses domination with freedom, love with possession, vision with sacrifice. Shadow work here means asking yourself, what dreams have I used to justify harming others or myself? Did I abandon vulnerability because I believed I had to be strong? What would it look like to fight for something without becoming what I once hated? And then there's Killmonger, Eric Stevens, N'Jadaka, a child of Wakanda and a product of abandonment. Killmonger didn't grow up in Wakanda's Golden Palace. He grew up in Oakland, in poverty, in oppression, watching his people suffer while a hidden utopia chose silence. His father was murdered, his heritage denied, his pain ignored. So he became a weapon, trained by the world's deadliest forces. Every scar on his body a life taken, a vow to never be powerless again. When he finally enters Wakanda, he doesn't want to belong. He wants to conquer, to use Wakanda's weapons to free Black people worldwide, to tear down the systems that built him from trauma. And you know what? He's not wrong about the injustice. His anger is earned. His vision has truth in it. But he tries to liberate the world using the very tools of the oppressor. He becomes what he hated, not because he's evil, but because he's hurting. Killmonger's shadow is righteous rage without healing. It's the desire for justice that's been warped by pain into vengeance. Shadow work here means asking yourself, when have I confused power with worth? What wounds am I still fighting the world for instead of healing within myself? What would liberation look like if I was rooted in love, not rage? And then there's Pain from Naruto Shippuden, or more precisely, Nagato, the boy who became Pain. Nagato was once gentle, sensitive, someone who truly believed in peace, but his life was ripped apart by war. His family was killed, his village destroyed. Over and over again, he lost everything, until all he had left was suffering. He was manipulated by a man who promised him justice, but instead taught him that peace could only come from domination. If everyone felt the pain he did, the world would stop fighting, or so he believed. So Nagato became a god, Pain. He created the Akatsuki, wiped out cities, and tried to force peace through destruction. Because in his mind, pain was the only teacher. And again, he's not wrong that suffering teaches us. But his conclusion was incomplete. He believed in justice but without mercy, peace but without love. And it took Naruto, someone who had suffered too, but chose a different path, to show him that healing was possible. Pain's shadow is the belief that suffering gives us permission to control others, that if we've hurt enough, we've earned the right to play God. Shadow work here means asking yourself, have I let pain define my identity? Do I believe suffering is the only path to truth? And if pain taught me who I am, can healing teach me who I could become? So what do Azula, Klaus, Silco, Killmonger, and Pain all have in common? They were shaped by trauma, betrayal, isolation, and grief. They weren't born evil, they were broken, and instead of being shown how to heal, they learned to survive through fear, power, and control. That doesn't excuse the harm they've caused, but it does explain why they've caused it, and that's what shadow work is about. Because when we look at these characters and see ourselves, we're not glorifying villainy. We're acknowledging the parts of us that are still hurting, the parts we've locked away, the ones that lash out when we feel threatened, rejected, or afraid. Shadow work is about facing those parts with honesty, not shame. It's about realizing that healing isn't about being perfect, it's about being whole. So if any of these characters resonate with you, ask yourself, where am I still carrying pain that I haven't spoken about out loud? What parts of me have I learned to hide because I thought they made me unlovable? And what might change if I stopped fighting my shadow and started listening to it? Because in the end, it's not about becoming the hero. It's about reclaiming the parts of ourselves we thought we had to bury to survive. So go ahead, face your shadow, but walk into the light. This is the Omniversal Seeker. See you in the next universe.